This is Huawei's Mate 60 Pro. Launched on August the 30th, 2023, it's Huawei's latest handset in the Mate series. There was no flashy launch event, no grand announcement, it just appeared on their flagship web store for customers to purchase. Within an hour or so, the initial stocks of the phone had sold out and the social media sphere was on fire. Huawei was trending on almost all social media channels worldwide. This was no ordinary phone launch. This was an historic moment for both Huawei and China. Within hours, tech vloggers had purchased phones and deconstructed them to reveal that Mate 60 Pro contained not only Huawei's in-house designed Kirin 9000S processor, but also that the phone supported 5G network speeds. Not only this, but the handset is also capable of making satellite calls too. So, why is this such an historic moment? First, we need to rewind a few years. Prior to 2019, Huawei had been rapidly growing its worldwide share of mobile phone handsets. In 2019, it shipped 240 million, more than Apple and only slightly behind the leader, South Korea's Samsung. Then on May the 15th, 2019 came a hammer blow to Huawei's handset business. The Trump administration imposed sanctions on Huawei. The sanctions were part of a broader effort by the Trump administration to pressure China on trade and other issues. The administration alleged that Huawei was a national security threat because of its close ties to the Chinese government and its potential to use its technology for surveillance purposes. But Huawei and its supporters argued that the sanctions were politically motivated and that they would harm consumers and businesses around the world. The sanctions prohibited US companies from selling Huawei components or software without a special license. This made it difficult for Huawei to source the components it needed to manufacture its products. The sanctions also restricted Huawei's access to Google's Android operating system, which is used by most smartphones around the world. For the first year or so after the sanctions, Huawei's handset sales did not suffer too much as the company worked its way through chips it had stockpiled before the sanctions took effect. In 2021, its worldwide sales of handsets started to rapidly decline. However, in China, its home market, the declines were not so great and it retained a reasonable market share. Unknown to many, Huawei has a semiconductor division, HiSilicon, which is the division that designs Huawei's chips for its entire range of products. The Kirin is the chip that is used in Huawei's handsets and is very similar to the chips offered by Qualcomm for mobile devices. As HiSilicon is only a design facility, it relied on TSMC of Taiwan to manufacture its chips. However, under intense pressure from the USA, TSMC refused to accept orders from HiSilicon, leaving Huawei without a supply of 5G capable chips. Huawei's last phone with 5G capabilities was the Mate 40 Pro 5G, which was released in October 2020. Since then, the handsets that have been released by Huawei have only been able to support 4G network capabilities. However, Huawei did not succumb to US pressure. It's clear from the launch of the Mate 60 Pro that Huawei have been working hard behind the scenes together with its partners to produce 5G chips in China, and it looks like they've succeeded. So, how has this been achieved? Well, it's important to point out that China did not view these sanctions as an attack on Huawei alone, but as an attack on China overall. The US is trying to stop China's technological advancement so the US can retain its supremacy. This is clear from how the US has moved to sanction many more Chinese technology companies under the cloak of national security. China's tech companies and government have responded to this by implementing a number of measures. Investment in research and development. Huawei has been investing heavily in research and development for many years. In 2022 alone, it invested 161.5 billion yuan, around $23 billion. Access to resources. Huawei has access to a wide range of resources. including financial resources, human resources, and technological resources. Huawei has tens of thousands of engineers spanning many disciplines, and Huawei pays very competitive salaries and so attracts some of the brightest people and best minds. Collaboration with partners. Huawei has collaborated with a number of partners including chip makers and universities. Huawei has worked closely with China's top chip fab SMIC, and it is widely thought that SMIC produced the 5G semiconductors for the Mate 60 Pro. Huawei also worked closely with China's top universities like Tsinghua, Peking and Jiaotong. Government support. The Chinese government has pledged to invest $1.4 trillion in the semiconductor industry over the next decade. This investment will be used to build new chip factories, develop new chip designs and train semiconductor engineers. Despite US sanctions, it's clear that China are making progress in the field of semiconductors, and perhaps faster than many people thought. For many, the launch of the Mate 60 Pro with the HiSilicon 9000S processor and 5G capability was a huge surprise, even to some senior employees of Huawei. Now let's turn our attention to some other developments in the Chinese semiconductor industry. First, let's take a look at what Gerald Yin, chairman of the Shanghai-based Advanced Microfabrication Equipment, said in a recent conference call with analysts. Yin said that 80% of restricted imported parts at AMEC can be replaced domestically by the end of this year, with 100% replacement following in the second half of next year, meaning that by the second half of 2024, all semiconductor etching equipment manufactured by AMEC will contain no US sanctioned parts. Currently, the semiconductor industry is based around silicon as its base material. However, silicon is reaching its limits for semiconductor production. There is much research going on all around the world to find the next revolutionary material for semiconductor production, and China has made a major breakthrough. As reported by South China Morning Post, researchers at Peking University have managed to produce 12-inch wafers of a 2D material which is only 1 atom thick. Professor Liu Kaihui, the lead scientist on the project, said, "We proved to the industry that this is scientifically feasible and instilled confidence. If there are industrial demands in the future, progress in this field will advance by leaps and bounds." The process was developed at University in Beijing and verified at Songshan Lake Materials Laboratory Dongguan, which I think is possibly a Huawei facility. I'll put a link to the article in the description of the video as it makes a very interesting read. As you can now see, the launch of the Huawei Mate 60 Pro is indeed a pivotal moment in the drive for China's semiconductor self-sufficiency. Chinese companies have overcome many obstacles in the last 2 to 3 years. They still have a long way to go to catch up with the leading semiconductor technology. However, it's clear that they are moving in the right direction and at a pace faster than many imagined. There is a saying which I've heard a number of people in China say, and I think it perfectly sums up China's thinking, and that saying is, "What doesn't kill me makes me stronger." I hope this video has illustrated why the launch of the Mate 60 Pro is so important for Huawei and China, and I hope you have enjoyed watching this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. If you do like the channel in general, consider hitting that subscribe button. However, as always, for now, take care.